Morning, everybody, and welcome to mypack.tv, our Sunday morning online experience. It's great that you are joining us here. We got a really good morning, I think, a good mixture of humor, some truth, some good stuff from the Bible, some community shenanigans, and some encouragement. And I just think that it's going to be a really good hour or so. But a few things to put on your radar. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, you'll want to do that. Pack Online, you'll find that. And I encourage you during the message this morning and the different things that are going on to chat with each other there and keep the community strong and engage with each other. I also want to mention that Alive Alive, Jake Fretz's new single that we have been enjoying here at Pack for probably 4 years. I remember the first time Jake played it for me on his iPhone when I picked him up for church really early on one Sunday morning. He's like, "Hey, Mike and I put this together. It sounds kind of cool." And he's playing it for me on his iPhone on this tinny little speakers. And it's such a far cry from that experience to the beautifully produced mixed version that you're going to hear on Spotify and iTunes in a few days. So you get more details about that on Facebook as well. But for now, let me turn us over to Jake, who's going to lead us in a worship set. And as we enjoy this, keep in mind that he's doing these periodically through the week on Facebook as well, so you'll want to watch for that. Over to you, Jake.
Thanks, Nate. Hey, and thanks to everyone at home. You know, it's been great to have you guys send in your songs this week and be interacting on Facebook, sharing the ideas and the songs that have been carrying you through this week. And, some of you have sent scripture along as well, and I would just love to share with you one of the ones that came up, and that was Philippians 4. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all, for the Lord is near." And that passage continues on to say, "So present everything through prayer and petition to your God, and the peace of God will guard your heart and guard your mind." And, as I think about these times where there's uncertainty and where there's fear, what we want to do now is to reflect on God's goodness, on His faithfulness, and spend this time singing and reflecting and listening to what He has to say to us. So let's spend this time recognizing His character and resting in that. My feet stand firm on the ground. They could not hold my Savior down. My hopes rise with every dawn. I stand alive beside the Christ, the risen one. 'Cause my fear, it doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear, it doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, no. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Oh, it may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, yes, I am a child of God. Yes, I am. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, and even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, whoa. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. 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 When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Why don't you sing this with me? It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
Thanks, Jake. The words of those songs are powerful, and they had me thinking this week about some of the harder moments for me when I'm scared. It's like suddenly a tightness in my chest, and I can't talk myself out of it for a little while. And I had one of those quick sort of lightning fear moments when I went to, it wasn't really a visit to my grandmother. My grandma's turning 100 in a few months, which is crazy. And she fell, so me and my dad went there, and we're trying to get her back on her feet, and I stuck around to chat with her for a while. And I asked her, Grandma, you've been watching the news? She's like, yeah. What do you think of it? Does it remind you of anything? And she goes, oh, yeah, the war. I was like, World War II, reminding my 99-year-old grandma. So there's some legitimate fears out there, and we're all feeling them, and there's no point in denying them. But we want to take that fear, and we want to do what Christians do. God never gives us permission to be afraid, okay? To settle for that. He understands why we're scared, but he's always trying to talk us out of it. Not with his, not with stuff that doesn't actually work, but with truth, with his power, and also with some of the gifts he's given us in community, like humor. So this morning, we're going to try and put all the things that God has given us to dial our fear down into the mix and see if we can't, as a community, help each other. I'm going to be joined by your friend and mine, Pastor Chris Kaler.
Hey, everybody.
Chris Kaler.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. This is why Sonia's here.
And
This is
Neepawa's own campus pastor, Sonia Friesen,
yeah.
Hey.
joining us. So, hi, Neepawa.
Hello,
Everyone says,
Neepawa.
Hooray! The desire that we have as Christians often is to try to grab control of something. Maybe because we have faith, we want to find like a deeper level to understand something and grab a deeper knowledge and understanding. And I think that I can help with that this morning.
Okay.
But first, you know what? I need to set the stage just a little bit further. Because we're going to be joking around a little bit this morning, I want you to understand what we're not joking around about. We take this very seriously, obviously. And if you were in this room, you'd see how seriously we are. All the protocols are being followed as best as we can. And obviously, it's a serious situation. But we don't want to take ourselves seriously. I think that would just make a heavy burden already even harder to bear. So there's going to be some lightheartedness this morning. Anything to add there in my disclaimer?
Oh, get excited.
Get excited.
Oh,
there we
boy.
go. Okay, so I've been watching some YouTube to try and find out what's really going on. Diving into some of the conspiracy stuff.
Ooh.
I've been into some of the intertestamental books, the Apocrypha, and I think I don't want to say for sure, but I think I just may have identified two, not all four, but two of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Wow.
So I'll break it down
Oh,
for you.
man.
I think
Okay.
it'll be
Enlighten us.
I think it'll be
Yeah.
pretty clear.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So when I read COVID, what stands out when you look at the word COVID?
I
The
don't-
V.
Oh,
Right
Do
in the
the
middle. It's,
big
just like,
Yeah,
it's
it's-
almost like prominent.
Thanks for showing us.
Now you got this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now what happens if you turn that upside down?
It's way easier.
Show us.
Boom.
Boom.
Okay.
Whoa.
Wow. What is
You
that?
tracking? At home, I think you're tracking.
Um,
You got.
We're praying they're
All
Okay,
right,
I'll
tracking.
maybe do this
tracking?
to help
Oh,
you.
Okay. Your
So-
sign language.
You get this
Get a triangle.
Wow.
triangle.
Okay.
Now,
Like
All
where
right.
this is going.
why are you inherently suspicious of a triangle? It's almost like it's a serpent, right? There's some reaction you have to a
Definitely.
triangle.
Definitely.
Do you know where that comes from? As believers,
Geology.
where that comes from is that our spiritual ancestors, they actually built the pyramids.
Oh, it's talking about.
Yeah,
Pyramids.
the
Oh, the
triangle,
pyramids.
Pyramid.
Ah.
Okay.
gives you a sense of,
Yeah.
of pyramids. And now
Always something. up with
where
the pyramids.
where are the pyramids?
They're in Egypt.
Egypt.
Yes.
Now, just think for a second.
Okay.
In all that's going on globally, have you heard anything about Egypt?
Not really. Oh,
Good call.
Nothing. Does that
Good
seem
call.
wow. Are you honest?
almost a little
This is-
bit
there's
a
like-
little bit too quiet?
Ooh,
a little bit
conspiracy.
too quiet. It's like they want to stay off the radar.
Oh, they're trying. Okay.
Oh, they're trying
So,
to.
so now
Wow.
keep spinning this
Yeah,
out. Just
uh-huh.
follow
Okay.
it through to its
Yeah.
logical
Right.
conclusion.
Logical conclusion.
You've got Egypt laying low. Now, who are the ancient rulers in Egypt?
The pharaohs.
Pharaohs.
Pharaohs. And who's the most popular pharaoh? The one that just on the tip of your tongue.
King Tut.
No, go a little farther back on your tongue. No,
Ramses.
Ramses.
Oh,
There we
Ramses.
go. Ding, ding,
Ramses.
ding. Right, Ramses.
why
King
you're
Tut
here.
was
That's why
close.
you're here.
It was close.
Pharaoh Ramsey. Now think about prominent Ramses in our day and age who wield considerable power.
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, financial guru Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey,
Anybody
yes.
else? Think chef, cooks.
Gordon
Gordon
Ramsay.
Gordon
Ramsay.
Ramsay
Yeah.
and
Oh,
what
I
is
s-
the name of
Hell's
his
Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen?
Whoa.
Oh, dude.
So listen,
So
listen,
really-
listen. I don't
okay,
want to get
so-
I don't want to get carried away.
Are you saying one of the horsemen?
You
No,
don't
no,
wanna
I'm
get
not.
carried away.
I'm not
No,
saying that. I'm not prepared to put
Wow.
words like anti
Right.
together with Christ.
Right.
Just quite yet.
That's
Okay.
right,
I
yeah.
don't want to. I don't want
Too
to
far.
say they're the two.
Do you have any graphs?
To just the triangle.
Okay. Okay. That's
The-
enough. That's legit now.
I'm not saying they're the two first horsemen of the apocalypse, but I think that probably as evangelicals, level-headed
Clear
evangelicals, we at least want to be wary.
thinking. Oh
Okay?
man.
Thank
so
you
so
Yeah.
as you go,
That's good.
For
Just-
That's a
bringing
real
us
treat
into
for the
awareness.
people
don't
out there.
don't
Wow.
Have
get
no fear.
carried away with
Yeah,
Dave
don't get carried
Ramsey.
away. Wow.
Or Gordon Ramsay.
Ramsay.
Well, thanks for that.
All right.
That's-
You're welcome.
You know, my fears
You're
are
welcome.
totally released now.
Now everyone's Googling
They
Egypt.
probably are. I know what my wife's doing.
Dave Ramsey.
I know exactly what my wife's doing. She's looking around the room. She's like, I told him not to do that.
Don't do it.
I told him that
Don't
he
do
should
it.
not do that.
Don't do it. Huh.
And, but here's what one of her reasons was, is that there actually people might believe it. Now, I don't think, it was so over the top, I don't think they will. I
You
think-
almost had me at.
Well, this was convincing. I mean, when you go like this, it's pretty convincing.
Oh wow.
But
Many steps involved.
you'd have to have a real lack of, let's call it wisdom. We'll use the biblical word wisdom to go into that.
This is
And
true.
I've been asking for wisdom this week. And as I was praying,
That's what you got.
no, that's not what I got. That was all me.
This is a lesson.
That,
That
was
was
all me.
human
Yeah.
wisdom.
God,
Yeah.
okay.
When I was praying, that
Okay.
didn't come to me in prayer, actually.
Okay.
What did come to me, and it was interesting when I told you, was James chapter 1. Because
Oh yeah.
To
Wow.
you,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. This yesterday morning, just in prayer, reading
Right.
the Bible, and it was like, boom, James 1. That was like just speaking to me.
Mhm.
And so I think it was kind of preparing me for today a bit,
Right.
a context.
So you and I talking this
Yeah.
morning. I'm like, last night,
Yeah, we just
feel
had
like
this
God gave
conversation.
me James 1, and then you're
Sonia
like, oh,
walks
me
in
too.
the door.
Sonia walks
We
in,
said that.
and
James 1, actually, since Monday.
Right.
It was like,
Wow.
boom, James 1.
Oh, you got it like
so
Monday.
Sonia talks to
Okay,
That's
good.
right.
God
You guys moved
faster,
faster than Chris and
faster
Nathan.
than us.
Neepa was blessed.
Because it took me
With a
5
quick
days.
cure.
It took me 5 days to
Yeah,
cook up
it's
my
like
conspiracy
by
theory.
Thursday,
There's
God's
the
like,
problem.
come on, Chris.
So
Wisdom?
and it's cool for me
Try.
that it's James 1 because over the course of my life, in different periods, I've memorized good chunks of scripture. But James 1 is probably the longest uninterrupted chunk that I remember. My sister and I, when we were in our early 20s, maybe even a little bit earlier, we're driving back home from Vancouver, and we're like, let's try and take some time here, memorize James 1. I tell you this story because you're going to have some time, and you're wondering how to go deeper with Jesus. Maybe memorization has never, ever been on your radar, but it's great to have this stuff in your head. And I was intrigued that I can still,
put you
I
on
can
the
still
spot?
say it.
Can you?
Oh.
I put you
Still
on the
say it.
spot. I was just gonna say.
Tell us.
So it is up there, but I'm going to look at you.
Okay.
Okay.
Consider it pure joy, my brothers,
the
when you
fact check.
face trials of many kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you can be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask, he or she, ask God, and that he or she threw me off. Let him ask God, and he will give who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind.
Wow, man.
Wow. Memorized in a 1991 Ford Probe as we went over the Coca-Cola.
Well,
That's
there you
awesome.
go.
So, Chris, what stood out for you as God
Well,
guided
number
you to
one,
that
you just
text?
nailed that, so that's impressive.
Well, thank you. That felt good for me.
We'd almost give you a standing ovation.
No.
No? Okay.
In the what was coming to me yesterday morning just would have been with the trials that we face. And here's a crazy thing that James is saying right in the beginning. And he's saying, consider it pure joy when you face any trials. And I'm not really the guy when I see something hard or difficult or a trial coming to me. I'm not like, yes, I get a trial. This is awesome. Here comes another really painful thing. So what is he doing? I was just kind of like sitting with the Lord, like, okay, so, but these trials produce, what you mentioned is this word perseverance. And it's this perseverance, when you learn how to exercise the muscle of perseverance, it's actually going to produce maturity and this thing that he says, like this huge thing, he's like, you're going to be complete. Like, so that to me is like, okay, so trials, we're experiencing trials, so there's stuff going on. But to look at this as just the way the shift that James is making is like, consider it joy. You got an opportunity to actually speak into this trial. You get to mature through it. You get to grow. And you're going to become something that you weren't before, which is hopeful.
Yeah. Cool. It was
Yeah,
kind of
that
along
was
the
my-
same
that was
lines,
what I got.
lines for me. Sonia,
Yeah.
what? Anything
Yeah.
different for you?
You know what? Yeah, no, it was definitely wisdom. Like, how do I posture my heart in this time? It says God is generous. He doesn't just hold back on that. But how do I posture myself in that? And then it talks about, undivided loyalties. And so, is there anything in my heart that needs to be shifted in this time to receive the fullness of that wisdom? And then I love, as we're getting close to the end of the chapter, where it talks about, don't just listen to this, but do it.
Yeah, wow.
Don't just hear
Yeah,
it and be
listening
like,
and
that was
doing.
good.
Yeah, that stood out
what
as
are the
well.
shifts that are needed to be made to receive that? And so,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of both those things coming together. I loved the idea, and it just reminded me how privileged in the West as a Christian I've been, that this would be like one of the first community trials that we've faced together. And so
yeah.
some of these encouragements, they pop in a little way because they teach us to not hunker down. They teach us to do some things, and it's like the testing of your faith develops perseverance. So our faith is being tested here, but that's going to take us to a good spot. And I like the phrase mature and complete.
Yeah.
In that is the promise that at the end of this, because of our faith, we're going to be better off.
Yeah.
Like because of this season, if you remain a
Totally.
person of faith, you're going to carry something with you
Right.
that you
right.
didn't have before.
Yeah.
Right.
You can actually carry it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So that was cool. And then the wisdom part was neat because I was praying for wisdom specifically. But maybe before I get into what I was praying specifically for, anything to add around mature completeness there? Did we cover that enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the wisdom part of it, I was really praying about how to talk about money with our congregation. really wanting to know what to do, because there's a part of me that wants to just say, come on, gang, let's keep being faithful and tithe. And then there's another part of me that's like, the financial reality has changed so much for people that you
Right.
can't really do that. It feels like in good conscience, but maybe God wants to bless people for that extra level of faith. Like, God, give me wisdom. And I was asking in the sense of James, and here's what I believe wisdom is for us. First of all, wisdom financially in a season like this, as always for Christians, is to care for the poor. First priority.
Yeah.
Care for
That's
those
good.
people who need care.
Yeah.
Right.
You actually get in trouble in the Bible sometimes when you're tithing and not caring for the poor.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing my religious obligation, but that's kind of tidy. I write a
Right.
check. I don't have to get my hands dirty
Right,
with
right, right.
anybody. And God says, your tithe check isn't made in the image of God. People are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Take care of them. So
Yeah.
poor
Yeah.
first. And then I also felt it wise to just say no guilt when it comes to giving to the church. This is not something you should be guilted into in this season. Obviously, we're thinking of new thoughts. We have people that we want to continue to employ and to keep things going. And we were only 2 Sundays in, and we don't know what it'll mean. Our board is meeting on Wednesday. Our exec team is meeting on Monday, and these are some of the things that we'll hash through. It's pretty early to see what the pattern might be, but when what's happening in your country is like what's happening in ours, I do think that PAC has it to be an outlier, that we could perhaps be the exception because of what God's done here in the past. We have been exceptional. But all that to just say that's the context we're in. I've had people ask me, we're making some hard decisions, but that's for information. That's not to guilt anybody or burden you more than you might already be financially. And then the third piece of wisdom, after the poor and after not burdening anybody, the third piece of wisdom that I received was to challenge those people for whom financially this actually isn't that big a deal. Instead of 3 zeros behind a number, you might have 2.5. It's really not going to change much for your standard of living. It might change how you feel about your security. And I believe that for you, you need to trust God with that feeling and allow Him to show you the truth of your financial situation so that you can provide for the church as the church provides for people, and that also we can all together provide for the poor.
Yeah.
That's good. When you say poor, I also think about the poor in spirit.
Right.
So just in this time too, is just thinking of people that are really just feeling discouraged or
Right.
scared.
Right.
I had an opportunity that I missed, but I'm ready now. But I missed. I was walking through co-op. The guy's there. He has a survey of he has got a poll of how many people can be in the store. So he's just making sure only 50 at a time. So you're kind of waiting to get in. But as I left, I was thinking, oh man, this poor guy's standing there. All he's thinking about is this thing that he's got to deal with, this virus situation,
Yeah.
how it's affected his work. And now I got to stand, and all these people are going to pass
Right.
by me. And I thought, next time I'm ready.
Yeah.
This might be put myself into a little bit of a trial situation, but I have an opportunity to encourage him, to ask him what he's worried about, and maybe I just ask in that moment, have God speak and just be able to give him some comfort in his own. Maybe he's just scared.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would think that's an awesome way to understand caring for the poor, is the poor in spirit as well. There are ways to give online, and you can see that on our website or in our Facebook group, and that would be fantastic for you to continue to support the good things God is doing through this church as we navigate this new season here. This is our second week of doing this live stream, and part of it is terrifying for us, and part of it is really fun. When I went home last week, my daughter was like, it was like you didn't know anybody was watching. I was like, oh man, all I could think about was people watching. But it's good that, I think it was a compliment. Anyway, there was
let's go with
lots of
compliment.
Yeah, I'll
Let's go
take it. I'll take it.
Thanks, Kate.
There was some feedback though that was like super helpful in the sense like, good stuff, guys. But what do you have for the kids?
Oh,
What's for the
yeah.
kiddies,
kiddos.
right? And
The
I thought
kids.
that's legitimate.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Kiddos.
need to
Yeah.
need to do something for the kids, and we probably don't have to look too far to do something for the kids.
Sure.
Because Sonia, you
Yeah.
do kids ministry in Neepawa,
Sure.
and
Probably cook something up pretty quick.
Think
I've
we
told a
can
lot of
try something.
stories
Yeah.
to my kids, and a
Sure.
lot of people don't know actually how good Chris is with kids.
That's right.
Like, you know him as
Um,
Chris Kaler. Maybe you know him as Pastor Chris. Maybe you don't know that to my kids, he's always been playfully referred to as Uncle Tubbs.
Uncle Tubbs.
Uncle
That's right. Little
Tubbs.
personality.
So-
Little personality comes up.
Yeah,
Little
yeah,
character.
kind of the quirky kids entertainer.
you kids.
Yeah, that wasn't quirky.
Getting warmed
That was like whiskey-soaked kids entertainer who smokes too much.
Tamara would love it, I think, if we helped her
she's
out.
already turned this
Right?
off.
We
Trust
should-
me, she has already turned this off.
Let's do something.
So what we're going to do is a little
Tubbs.
feature that I think the kids are going to love.
Okay.
And
boy.
we're calling it Uncle Tubbs's Tiny Town.
Well,
Now, like most kids, and you remember songs from when you were a kid, the kids shows,
Yeah.
the music?
Yeah.
Do you remember any
oh,
songs?
yeah, like the
Rock-
Friendly Giant or the Fraggle Rock's a good
Fraggle
one.
Rock.
Fraggle Rock.
You actually remember the song?
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Down in
Wow.
Fraggle Rock.
Whoa.
Let the music play. Worries for another day. Let the Fraggles play.
There you go, see?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
anyway.
see? So it's important to have the right song, obviously,
Oh,
because it'll stick with kids. And I think
wanna
we
start
found
us
the
off?
right song.
The
No,
song? No?
you know, I think you guys got
You
this.
got-
All
I
right,
think
let's
you
let's
really
begin.
do.
theme song. Kids, are you ready?
It's
Wow.
Uncle Tubbs's tiny
Uncle
town.
Tubbs.
Gather your kids and come around as Pastor Nathan shuffles down.
I need a hat.
Down.
Down.
Hold the note down. Shuffling down. Shuffling down.
Crack, crack. Oof. It's Uncle Tubbs's tiny town.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Just put this thing down. There we go. Oh, what you got? You're holding a stick, little buddy. There you
There
go.
we go.
Hey,
Oh,
little
that's
buddy.
the wrong
Oh,
thing,
hey,
Uncle
how are you
Tubbs.
doing?
Uncle
How are you
Tubbs, I got
doing?
confused.
Uncle
Oh,
Tubbs. Hey.
How are you doing, Uncle Tubbs?
I'm doing good. And don't forget
Oh, boy.
Safari Sonia.
Safari
Oh,
Sonia,
man.
how are you?
Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
We've been
Wow.
really
This
looking
is
forward
something else.
to having you on our show.
Yeah.
Sergeant Sonia.
Special guest.
Whoa.
All the way
And
from
hi,
Newport.
all you boys and girls. And especially hello to Tamara Westlake. This is the future of kids ministry right
Oh
here.
man, I don't know if this. Hey, little buddy.
Give me
Since we're
5.
buddies,
Give me 5.
Oh, you know what? I got some
Sorry,
hand
I'm not
sanitizer.
actually angry.
You know
Uncle
what? We
Tubbs.
should probably do that. All right, hang on.
Hand sanitizer.
There we go.
you
All right, you're good to go. And because we're buddies, I got you a little something to match what I'm wearing. That's
Oh.
what buddies do, right, buddy?
Thank you, Uncle
You're
Tubbs.
welcome.
It kind of itches.
Safari,
What?
Sonia, did you have a gift?
Yeah, Safari Sonia.
I have the gift of watching
Do
you right now. I
do
feel like
you
that's
have
my
a gift
gift.
for me?
All right.
So, Uncle Tubbs, you're going to tell me a Bible story, right?
Yeah, I am. I totally am.
From Song of Songs, I think.
Song of Songs. Let's not do that. How about Genesis? Genesis.
Okay.
It's good book. Safe book to
Is
talk.
it your favorite book?
It's a great book. It's
Okay. Could you tell me a story from Genesis?
how about the story of Abraham?
No, not that one.
All right, and wow.
How about a different one?
How about
How about
how about we do?
we leave it?
Yeah.
No, I think
You know
I
what?
think the plan was for me to pull the plug.
Yeah. I think it went too long for you to pull the plug.
It's awkward.
It got
All
a
right,
little much.
all right.
It
It
got
was
a little much.
All right, yeah.
It was a little
It's
much.
okay.
It was a little much.
Maybe let's just leave it
Maybe
to Tamara.
we should leave it
and
to Tamara.
I think there's a video that maybe hopefully she prepared something. Let's roll that. Oh, and let's roll that.
check it out.
Let's roll that,
Please.
please.
Hey kids, just wanted to let you know we are still doing Kids Church. It's just going to be online. So I don't get to see you here, but you will get to see one of your own classmates teach the Bible story. So tune in on Thursday to look at that. I also want you guys to practice the spiritual discipline of service this week. Now, it's a bit harder because you have to stay home and you can't talk to your neighbors. But you guys are so smart. I know that you're going to come up with wonderful ways to serve your moms and your dads and your brothers and your sisters, but also your neighbors who you can't talk to. I would love for you to send me an email with your mom or your dad about how you served your family and how you served your community, even when you had to stay in your house. And don't forget to do your memory verse. Send me in a video of you reciting it and I'll give you your points. Remember, those kids in preschool who remember their memory verse, they get a Lego present at the end of June. And those kids in grade 1 to 6 who memorize their verses, they will get a trip to camp. So Memorize those verses, send them in on video, and we miss you so, so much, but serve each other well this week. Bye-bye.
And we are back and going to dive directly into the sermon. We're moving our way through.
Smooth transition.
Nice. I thought it was very smooth.
Uh-huh. Just ignore what just happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
There are no words.
And we catch up with Jesus as he is in the process of being trapped for the second time by the Pharisees and Herodians. Let's read through the text together. It says, later, they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. Now, Pharisees and Herodians, they never get along in history except when they're trying to trap Jesus. The Pharisees are staunch Jews who don't want anything to do with Rome and are trying to be as pure as possible. The Herodians are the ones who are like, let's compromise with Rome. So they hate each other, but they're trying to trap Jesus because Jesus is a threat to both of them. They come to Jesus and they say, Teacher, look how they butter him up. Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Our question for you. Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. Why are you trying to trap me? He asked. So right away he knows that this is not a straight up question. They're trying to trap him about this tax. Bring me a denarius and let me look at it. The denarius was the specific coin that you had to use for this tax. They actually minted a coin that was for it, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So it's a really clever thing Jesus does here. You'll see that in a moment. They bring him the coin, and he asks them, whose image is this? And they replied, Caesar's. Now, whose inscription is on it? So there's the image of Caesar on one side of the coin, and then on the other side, inscribed is Caesar, emperor and high priest, or the divine Caesar, the high priest. So super offensive to Jews who worship God and have a different high priest. Then Jesus said to them, after they say Caesar, Caesar's inscription, Caesar's picture, and Jesus says to them, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And they were amazed at him. Chris, I'll start with you. Caesar, we're learning all about Caesar.
Yeah.
What sort of thoughts come to your mind?
Well, I was getting, I kind of was just following along. I got a little distracted.
Okay.
I thought I'd make a quick salad.
Oh,
Caesar.
what kind of salad?
So, well, I got some Caesar.
Caesar.
I had some stuff. Figured we could.
Oh, you got a clamato there?
I'm gonna make a salad. Maybe have a couple Caesars.
I see.
Caesars.
Wow.
The-
I think you
not
really
where
got
we're,
it.
not where
No,
give
not.
to Caesars what's.
Oh, Chris,
Oh, shoot.
not where we're going at
All
all.
right. Okay. You know, that's
Maybe.
why you're here,
That's-
Sonia.
that's why Sonia's
Maybe you want to start with Sonia next
here.
time instead of me all the time.
Why don't we start with you, Sonia?
Okay, sure.
We've got Jesus here being asked a
Yes.
question that is hard to
Yeah.
answer. Any questions come to your mind where you felt a little bit trapped?
You know what? I'm going to play it on the other side of when I trapped.
Oh, nice.
So I have a thing that I like to do every now and then and just change my hair. And when there's hair scissors around, then I'll get creative. And so I remember this one time, not too long ago, I was trimming my hair. And
Like you doing it yourself?
Oh,
Just-
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You just watched the YouTube video?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Like, of course, it's a guarantee.
DIY hair.
Curls are forgiving. And I got to a point where I knew that if I would go ask Rylan, does this look good? I knew that there was no way out for the poor guy. So I went out and I was like, Rylan, doesn't this look great? And I just remember him just like staring at me, like how, you know, and he's just so kind. And he's like, well, it could have potential.
Nice.
But he never commented on the actual
not a
hair.
bad- That's not a bad answer, actually.
You
Yeah.
even heard Pat laughing back there. He's
At
like,
the end of the text about Jesus, the crowd is amazed at his answer, and I think we are amazed at
You're
Ryland's,
amazed at
at Ryland's
Ryland's.
answer. For me, no one was really that amazed. I was remembering a time where somebody tries the dress on. Right, it looks terrible, and I'll just say one of my sisters. Let's say one of my sisters, and we won't say which one, or it's a haircut or something, and they're like, "How do I look in this dress?" Is it, or even
yeah,
worse, is
yeah,
this?
yeah.
Don't I
Wow.
look nice?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I would look better in the dress.
oh, wow. That's a
And I'm not saying
stretch.
I'm not saying I'm going to look good in the dress. I'm just saying better than that.
Wow.
So my go-to, but people have caught on is like
Yeah.
to just really enthusiastically go, now there's a dress. Now
There's-
that
Comment on
that is a
That is
dress.
a dress.
There's a dress. For me,
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I think in the food industry, so I like, unique tastes. So you can put yourself into a vulnerable spot where you're like, I really like this. You should try it. And what do you think?
Right.
Or doing a recipe you've never done before, and you try it out on like my wife. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do remember doing it similar to you, where you actually kind of you trap somebody, or servers sometimes say, "Hey, why don't you try the hog livers? Like, why don't you try that? That's something really abstract on the menu, because it's so awesome."
Do people really eat hog liver?
I just like saying it in a way that doesn't sound
Okay.
appealing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but you come back to the table and you're like, "So how is it? How is everything?" And they're like, and you can see they're not really eating it. They're kind of fake. They try to put something in their mouth real quick. So definitely have experienced that side of it.
I remember the first sermon Tamara heard me preach. I put her in a position like that. It was at Panorama Church when I was in seminary in Vancouver, and it was a church in North Delta. And I think I went for probably 50 minutes, like just page after page,
Yes.
and written to the letter with like a really small font,
Script,
right? So
yeah.
I'm like this and this, and it was basically every thought I had about God, and I threw in some Egypt conspiracies. Like it was just rough. But I'm like, that was pretty good, right? You can just tell
Crickets.
it's not, right? My one friend from Ireland, he came to watch, and he's just a truth teller. He's like, that was pretty rough.
So honest.
So have you been, can you think of a time where you've been trapped though, where it's like it hasn't just been an innocent question, the person is actually trying to trap you, right? So when somebody asks me about a dress or whatever, it's not like a sinister trap, but maybe there's some things in your life where, like the Herodian and Pharisees, the person actually has an agenda.
Oh yeah. Definitely see it probably in things like controversial things, or things maybe as a
Right.
pastor. There's like, I've gotten this one a lot, where somebody says, "Hey, Chris, what's your opinion on the book of Revelation?" Right? And the
I'm
weird
for
thing, I love the book of Revelation. Like, but they're not really. They're asking this weird question, which is like, they're not so much interested in my
Yeah.
answer. Every time somebody asks that question,
Yeah.
they're not really interested in what I think.
Yeah.
It's more like they're about to tell me what they
What they
think. So
Yeah.
so I'm like, I am for Revelation.
You had a
Yeah.
weird experience
I know.
when Pac Nipua was renting the pool
That's
up
right.
in Nipua for the community.
Yes. Here we are, grilling these hot dogs, just enjoying the sunshine, and we get this young guy who comes in, and he just comes
Like
right
not from the church.
not from the church,
Okay.
literally from the street, just comes off the street and into the park, and he looks at us, and he just says it out loud. So how do you guys feel about Satanists?
About Satanists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Satanists.
And
How
it's
do you
like,
feel about Satanists?
I'm against them. I'm
You
against
want a
Satan.
hot dog.
Do you want a hot dog? Good answer.
And because of how he carried himself, because of some of the shirts and stuff that was on his face, you're thinking that he kind of dabbles in that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So he's trying to make a bit of a
Yeah.
statement and,
Yeah.
and push you in a
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's places where you'll get a suspicious email as a pastor, like, what do you think about this issue? And I'm like, are you like from the press, or are you from the
Right.
denomination?
Sure.
And it's
Right.
just kind of, the
Yeah.
denomination isn't that suspicious, for the record. So we know from
We would've been
experience.
shut down a long time
We know from
tracking with this
experience.
a whole
They're
lot.
suspicious now. We know from experience that it's hard to weasel your way out of these. To do it
Yep.
without trapping yourself, or to fall for it. But what Jesus does here is so brilliant. He doesn't just evade the answer necessarily, but he actually flips the trap on them. And then at the very end, he gives us these powerful words for what we should now all do. Like it's just Jesus at his most brilliant. So let me try to explain a bit about some of the context so that you can get a sense of exactly how sharp this is, what Jesus is doing. So Pharisees, Herodians, we talked about them against each other. They're coming to trap him. You imagine them like for a long time. They got a whiteboard full of questions.
Right.
Let's ask him this. No, he'll just that. Let's ask him this. No, he's going to. No, so they settle on this collaborative effort, their best thinking. We'll ask him about the poll tax. Now, here's why it's a good question. Because the poll tax is a specific tax that the Jews just hate. It's not like they were fond of any Roman tax, but this one in particular, they just hate it. What's your least favorite tax? Still on the tip of your tongue.
Shoe tax? I don't know. Is there a tax on shoes? Clothing tax?
Clothing tax?
Clothing tax.
Okay, so you know how they feel.
Oh, yes.
They hate it even more than Chris hates the shoe tax.
Oh, I hate that shoe.
Here's why they hate it. They hate it because when it was imposed, it was already added to a really heavy burden. And it was so heavy that they decided we're going to rebel against Rome. The rebellion lasted like hardly any time at all. Rome squashed them. So it's a sign more than any other tax of their failure to be independent. You've got these holy people of God, and they're enslaved. Well, they're not enslaved, but they're captive in a land that isn't theirs, and they have to do whatever Rome wants them to do. The poll tax is a reminder of that. That's reason number one why they hate it. Second reason that they hate it is they have to pay it with this coin called the denarius. And on it is a picture of Caesar, like we talked about earlier. And that's not the Caesar salad, easy. The picture of Caesar. And the Jews, the devout ones, believe that you should have no graven image. So no reconstructed image of a human being. This is blasphemous to do.
Like an idol.
Yeah, like an idol, right? But they're so into following the rules that the question for these guys is actually, do we even have pictures of animals? Do we even have statues of animals?
Right.
So for sure, no people.
Right.
So on this coin
Wow.
is a blasphemous image that if you touch it, it's unclean. So you got the coin as propaganda, you got the coin as like a spiritual issue, and then of course the inscription is also a mess as well. And so just the
What was
whole,
the inscription again?
the inscription was Caesar Augustus, divine high priest.
Okay, well, yeah.
So you can see as
Maybe
a
a
Jew.
problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, divine
So,
high priest.
so
For
they
sure,
don't they don't even want to touch this coin.
Right.
So Rome has actually minted a different coin with nothing on it. I think it's just a brass coin that you can pay this tax with.
Okay, yeah.
So
Interesting.
this is going on.
Yeah.
So pure Jews don't touch the coin. Corrupt ones do.
Wow.
So remember what Jesus says when they ask him the question?
Bring me the
Bring
coin.
me the
Bring
coin.
you, okay, like that.
So now
okay.
what Jesus has to do here is he can't side with either group. He can't say don't pay the tax, because then Rome sees him as a rebel. He can't say pay the tax, because then the Jews see him as a compromiser.
Right.
But he gives these hints in here. So when he says bring me the coin, they bring the coin, and immediately now Jesus' group is seen as, well, we don't have a coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't touch that thing.
Right.
I can't just pull it out of my pocket. It's up to you guys to get it.
Wow.
So they, in a
Wow.
way, they have
That's
to be so
brilliant.
committed to the trap
Right.
Yeah,
over
just
purity
gets flipped.
that they have to touch the coin.
Yeah.
So eventually they go, they look for it, they bring it. Jesus looks at it. Whose picture's on it? Again, rub it in. What graven image do you see on this thing?
Yeah,
Caesar.
yeah.
So he's got them already in some ways just when he gets them the coin. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then he pushes it even further. When he says, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, he's echoing a rebel cry of the Jewish revolution that the Maccabees did. And they would shout something like, give Rome back what they deserve. Give them back what they deserve. Like angry, right?
Right.
Like we're
Eye
going to...
for an eye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eye for an eye,
Yeah.
revenge. We're going to... So when Jesus says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, what tone of voice is he saying it in? Is
Oh,
it
yeah,
like,
okay.
give
Yeah.
to Caesar what's Caesar's?
Right.
I hope that came across like a sneer, angry. Or is it indifference? Like, who cares? It's not, my picture's not on it. It doesn't bear the image of anyone important. Just let it go. And you can't really tell. But the charges can't stick. Is he
Right.
being rebellious?
Yeah.
Is he being nationalist? Is he supporting Rome? It's just absolutely brilliant. Avoiding any kind of sticky charge on him.
I think it's always funny, you know it's a trap when like the two of your enemies suddenly your best friends.
Right.
Like the Romans and the Pharisees, right? They're like, all of a sudden, like they never agree, but in this
Now they
moment they're
wanna
like,
talk to you.
hey, let's hang out.
Yeah.
So I have this high school moment of like maybe like you're good friends, you did something and your friends just upset, and suddenly they're hanging out with somebody
Yeah.
that you just like you
You
don't
see
ever
'em
hang
coming.
out, you never hang out with, and they're just like, oh, they're buddies now. Huh. What happened
Run.
there? Yeah, and they're like come to you with stuff.
Yeah, he sees it coming.
Yeah.
I mean, and he says that, right?
Yeah.
He sees the trap. It's like, why are you trying to trap me? So he avoids it. He basically, when he shows them the coin, makes them show him the coin, and then when he says that phrase, they don't know where he stands, which is just brilliant. The either or question is answered with, it's still answered, but it's,
Wow.
Right.
but the last part that he says then is super helpful for us today, and I think this would probably be the part that Jesus wants us to dwell on, because what he isn't doing here is giving us a one-off for all-time teaching on the role of church versus government,
Right.
or when do Christians revolt,
right.
when do they pay tax. etc. There's other places.
Yeah, because we've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep paying the shoe tax. Just don't
Darn it.
stop that.
I thought we could decide.
The
That was a
part
church
that
thing or
the part that is worth diving into at length, I think, is when he says, "But give to God the things that are God's," or to carry on his thought, give to God the things that bear His image. Caesar's image is on the coin, but give to God the things that are God's. Well, what are the things that are God's? The things that bear His image, which is human beings, and that's where I think there's some real power for us to think about how we're going to serve God, how much of ourselves we're going to give to God. I see two questions that will live in here for the rest of our time, and that they come out of the text for us. The first is, what does it mean to give yourself to God?
yeah. That's a great question. You want to go with that? You know, I don't know. I do see. I think there's this. I think sometimes when we submit ourselves to God and we ask Him to, you know, like, what's my purpose and what's my call? I think we get good clear calls from Scripture or from His voice guiding us into it, and we get a picture of, like, oh, this is who I am.
Right.
This is the image I carry, and this is what I'm supposed to do, and we start to see that play out in our cities, in our environments, in our workplace, in our churches, our families. But a big challenge, I think, is that sometimes we get a picture of the product, but and we're excited because God showed us that. But the challenge comes in we sometimes is giving God, I guess, the process of what it could look like. So sometimes, like Chris, you know, I feel like God has said, okay, Chris, you're gonna do some stuff, and here's what I want you to do. But then things come to test me, to trial me, to grow me in this process to become what He's called me to be. And so sometimes I can rebel against the process because it doesn't look the way I think it should look. So a real challenge is saying, God, I want to follow what you said I need to become. But the challenge is in that submitting to, and I'm willing to do it however you want it to look. I will walk those steps. I will listen to your voice. I will take and do the hard stuff that people are asking me to do, that as they refine me, shape me, or as I grow into this person.
Yeah, we are always, I wouldn't say suckers for, but we're captivated by the after picture of ourselves.
Yeah.
This is what you'll look like, mature and complete. Or in the fitness world, this is what it's going to look like. And we're trust God with that process. That's who I am. That's me. That's my identity. But then when He says, okay, so what you have to do today, then is forgive this person, or you have to be generous, or you have to. We're like, no, I want to be that, but I can't trust you with that.
It's like this
process.
Image of football of being like, I want to start on the end zone line and just run it and get the touchdown, instead of actually starting on the 1 yard line, growing and actually getting the touchdown, growing. And I think it's the difference between do you want the instant Saul anointing, or do you want to have the anointing of David, where you get shaped, you get little things, you use them, steward them well, and you grow into what God's called you to be.
Yeah, the biggest disconnect for that is Christians who trust God with where they're going to go when they die, but they can't trust Him with the process of their lives. So I believe that because of Jesus being who He is and who He is to me, I'm going to get to go to heaven when I die, and I'm going to be cared for. But that's not going to change what I do today, because today is mine. I won't trust you with the process of my life.
The today moment.
Yeah.
Right now.
I think as I process this, I think of, you know, how does it look like to give ourselves back to God? I think a good indicator is, where am I not obeying? Or where am I obeying? You know, because when we actually see when we've stepped out in obedience and see the fruit of that, and see, like, yeah, you do hold the bigger picture. I can trust you in that. And so where are the areas that I'm not obeying? It could be obvious, or it could just be something you're not aware of. I think of the little things in life that seem good, but aren't actually in a posture of obedience. So I was thinking of this one scenario in my life where I was working downtown in Saskatoon, and I had a meeting pretty quick. I was on a quick break, and I was at this crosswalk, and I literally was 20 feet from the office. And here's this man standing next to me waiting for that crosswalk light to go on, and he's using a walker. And you can tell that he's, you know, he could use some healing. And I clearly remember just feeling the prompt, you should pray for this man. And I was like, yeah, I could, but I also could get back to work and do the things that I'm supposed to do, like, all the
Works
things.
from
Why
God,
not,
right?
right?
Works from God. Yeah, I can do that.
And I did that. I did my agenda, my daily agenda. I went off that because I'm like, God, you said this was okay, right? And all the excuses. And so where it could seem that I'm doing something good, but I'm actually not giving that to God,
Yeah.
in the moment. Like if he's prompting me to do this, he's got that covered,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it's not about the
That's
agenda
good.
that I have, but you got this.
That's good. Wow.
I like you using the word agenda because it's almost another word for process that Chris was using. Like,
Right.
we trust you with the end process, but let's take our agenda to get there.
Yeah.
Let's take my plan to get there. And when you come to God with an agenda, you put yourself in the camp of the Herodians and Pharisees coming to Jesus. But they're not actually interested in what he's going to say or teach them or real guidance about the poll tax or anything else that they ask. They just want out of him what
Right.
they want out of him, the way that they want it. And so we won't imagine ourselves as having like that malignant an agenda, but our agenda with Jesus can still hurt our relationship with him
Yeah.
when we try and impose that
Right.
on him. So that's kind of leads to the second question is, where do I try and trap Jesus with an agenda? Where do you see it? And you're doing that because you might not be comfortable thinking, I don't trap Jesus with an agenda. Okay, try this on for size. Where do you say something like, Jesus, if you don't X, then I won't Y. If you don't do your part, then I'm not gonna this part. Or since you didn't do this, I'm sure not gonna
Oh,
do
man.
that.
Dude, like I lived way too many years of my life with that as my MO with God. It was like, God, if you do this, then I'll do this. And if he didn't do it, then I was mad, upset, or I'm out. And that was this negotiation, this like contract, like, God, if you do this, I'll do this. Or if you go first, then I'll go. Or if this happens, then I'll do this. And man, that just brought me a lot of pain in my life. And so there's got to be something bigger than a contract. I was just over the last week or so, I've been interested in this idea in the Old Testament called the Shema, like this. It's to mean to listen to God, but not like it was more like what you just described. It was being able to listen to God, posture yourself to listen to God without even knowing what he's going to say, already
Right.
having an open heart to say yes
Right.
to whatever he's going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's this interesting thing that we can do where before we ask, we just say, okay, God, whatever you want to tell me, I'm going to say yes to. And that's a big thing. And recently, just trying to work that through, I was doing the surprise thing was in confession. Okay, God, I did this, or I'm disappointed with what I did here, and bringing those things to God versus now asking God, but what do you see? And my willingness, as I ask that question, is whatever you bring up, I need to do something about. So anyways, it's a new thing, just going through the process.
I suspect as anybody goes through that process, whether your relationships with God or with somebody else, where you submit ahead of time, or
Yeah.
you're truly receptive,
Yeah.
then you're going to grow in intimacy.
Mm.
Like, so think of a marriage relationship where it's all based on, I'm only going to do this if she does this, and I'm not doing that unless he does
Oh,
this.
That's a
Like,
good time.
you know
right
where
there.
that's,
Yeah.
it's not a good time. no.
No.
But when a couple is gracious enough to covenant together in a way that has them saying, no, I'm going to do my thing first.
That's good.
I even think of what we're living in today, and what are the agendas that we've already created. It's not something that we could have planned for ahead of time, but that doesn't mean we can't make shifts now, and so are we holding back even in the way that we are giving back to God by saying, God, what if my work doesn't look the same that it did? What if my finances are different? What if we do come out of this changed? Is that a negative thing? I think
Yeah.
right now we have this unique experience where we get to choose how we come out of this and how we posture our hearts right now and say, God, really search it. Get that flashlight out, and so
we
that
do.
I
That's
have
good.
that posture, that fullness. We were talking about wisdom earlier, right?
Yeah.
God, give us the wisdom, and so I don't want to hold back on anything.
Right.
Wow.
You think of how many of our prayers, if we're not careful, are actually ransom notes. In the sense, like,
Wow.
you've seen it on TV, the complexity of the exchange, right? Because if I give them the money before I get my kid, I may not get my kid back.
Right.
So God, I can't actually
Yeah.
give you myself. Before you give this, you got to
Yeah.
give it to me first so that it's safe for me to
Yeah.
jump.
Yeah.
And it's just so very backwards because it flies in the face of every way that God asks him to trust us.
Right.
Yeah.
He's
totally.
not a kidnapper holding our lives hostage.
Yeah.
He's a father who wants to bless us.
He knows
Yeah.
what's
And
good
he
for
knows
us.
part of
Yeah.
that blessing comes as we
Wow.
have the courage to go first.
Yeah.
When we were thinking about some of this stuff about how we see God and how we ask him for things, I remembered one of the ways that I learned how to pray. A teacher, and it's a great way to learn how to pray, but it's like, the stuff always just keeps developing. But I learned the acronym ACTS, like the book of Acts, ACTS.
Okay.
So when you're praying, start with adoration. So
Oh yeah, I remember
the
this.
praising of
Yeah.
God for who he is, and then confession.
Confession.
You confess your sins, and then thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
And then you can ask for stuff, supplication.
So,
So
Sweet.
it's a little bit like
Let me go
what we're
through the
talking
process
about. And it sounds a little bit like the Herodians and Pharisees. I mean, they butter him up. We know that you're a teacher who's not swayed,
Wow.
et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in our prayer lives, it's like, and I'm so bad, and I'm so humble, and
Right.
forgive me.
Confession.
And
See?
exactly.
Yeah.
And thank you for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you for,
Right.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Now the
Now.
point is what I really wanted to do is ask him
Wow.
for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do that and still be totally living in your agenda.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
Yeah,
take,
it's true. So wow,
Yeah.
such a good point.
so you just be, I mean, you know what you want, and
Yeah.
you're not entirely free of those desires.
Right.
So that might even be part of your confession in that sense, is like, Jesus, pray to me, have me pray to you the way that you want me to. But I thought a good, helpful thing would be to take that acronym ACTS, or was this your idea?
Oh heck,
Might
no.
have been Sonia's
No
idea.
way.
No, definitely
No,
not.
this is definitely
Way to own it.
100%
Go
Westlake
team.
on this one.
Go team.
Over here.
So we thought that a good way would be to add an H at the front and have it
Why
be
is it we? Though?
hacked. It's always we. Hacked.
Life hacks.
Known to hacked.
Hacks.
Hacks.
Like axe, but with an H. Now, here's why. Because over and over in the Old Testament, when we see God interact with somebody, they are at a sticking point for breakthrough in their life. They're asking for things, they're adoring, they're confessing. They're probably doing the axe thing, but until they add the H, there's no breakthrough. And that H, we're going to make it stand for here am I. So you look through the Old Testament,
Okay.
and you look at how many Old Testament figures say, here am I to God, in this act of submission. So it's actually more powerful than saying, I love you to God. It's this full indifference. You're still interested in what God is doing, but you're indifferent to what he would tell you, because
Right.
whatever he tells you, you will simply do.
Just
Yeah.
yes.
So you start your prayer time, and this would be the encouragement for PAC in this season, when fear threatens to guide our agenda,
Yeah.
when self-preservation threatens to guide our agenda, when there's
Yeah.
just extra pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also have an opportunity to see ourselves clearly, how easy our agenda can come to the surface. Can we begin to pray in a way that starts, here am I?
Right.
That's
And whatever happens,
super good.
I will obey,
Yeah.
and I promise that ahead of time.
Right.
You have me here.
Yeah.
Hacks.
Hacked.
Got it.
Let's pray, and then we'll end our time together. Jesus, we thank you for your nearness to us all. We thank you for how attentive you are to us, how you're not surprised by what we're facing, and you're not surprised by our emotional response to it. You know exactly what we need. Some of what we need, you intend to give us through each other. And I pray that we'd find creative ways to join together as a community to support each other. I pray that not just us as individuals would become mature and complete through this season, but that PAC as a church would become mature and complete, not lacking anything. There, in fact, have been things that we've been lacking, and you know what they are. And so as a church, as the leadership of this church, I would just say before you, here are we, here is our church, and we just submit into your hands whatever agenda we might have. We confess our lack of wisdom. We adore you for your attention. We thank you for the good things in our lives. And we ask for your help and for your encouragement in this season. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Grace and peace, everyone. We shall see you soon online.